Hello, I'm Caleb Whitney, and today I'll be discussing CCD and Russian bees and the research being done on Russian bees in conjunction with CCD and a way to mitigate the effects of it. The objectives today will be the ability to identify CCD or colony collapse disorder and the main causes of CCD, and two, to understand the basic principles behind experimenting with different races of honeybees in order to combat CCD. So CCD stands for colony collapse disorder, and colony collapse disorder is characterized by the sudden death or loss or disappearance of a large majority of bees in the hive. And originally, we didn't even know that the bees were dying. We just saw that they disappeared, and honeybee keepers didn't know what to think about this. And eventually, we did research and found that the bees were actually leaving the hive in order to die. And since 1947, honeybee numbers in the United States have declined by about 40%. But 2015 was the first year that beekeepers lost more bees in the summer than the winter, which is a pretty telling tale because most bees from a hive die in the winter while the nest is over or the hive is overwintering and just surviving on stockpiles of food that they kept. For a long time, scientists and beekeepers thought there was a single cause for CCD, and in recent years, we've actually discovered that is a culmination of different problems all culminating in CCD. And some of these problems are the weakened immune system due to global pesticide usage and the introduction of new parasitic mites in the US in the 1980s that prey on the bees and their brood. And there's also the genetic selection for bees that create less propolis, which is beeswax and makes it easier for beekeepers. However, it's recently been found that propolis has a antimicrobial uh, effect, so that is also not helping. The invasion of these two new mites in the US in the 1980s was a big contributor to CCD as far as we know. And due to the perfect storm of the changing environment due to global warming and global pesticide use, these parasites have found a population of honeybee in the US in a state they could be taken advantage of. And on this slide on the right, I have a picture of the varroa mite on top. You can see it on the bee's thoracic section. And the bottom picture is a picture of tracheal mites inside of the trachea of the bee. So where do Russian bees fit into this? Well, in the 1990s, about 1994, there was colonies of a race of honeybee found in Primorsky Krai in Russia were brought to the US for research after finding that they had smaller amounts of mites in their honeybee colonies than American honeybees. After sufficient research, it was found that the reason for this with these bees were maintaining lower levels of mite infestation compared to their American counterparts due to having better hygienic practices or being more able to dispose of dead, dying, or infected nestmates, which drive down the population of mites in the colony. And if you look to the left, I have a diagram by O. Becking. It's the process of removal or hygienic behavior in which if a bee detects a cell with a parasitized pupa, she will uncap the cell and the pupa is removed. And though the mother mite may escape, all of the offspring that were on that pupa will be destroyed by the bees, which will very much help the colony over time. So what does this mean moving forward in regards to CCD? Well, recent research has already focused on locating the genes responsible for the heightened hygienic practices of the Russian honey. In the future, we may be able to interbreed the two, creating a hybrid and allowing us to force higher levels of expression of these hygienic genes, potentially reducing the effects of CCD substantially. Other areas of research for combating CCD are still ongoing, and it is projected that if we continue to lose honeybees at the rate that we have, managed honeybees may no longer exist by as early as 2035. Other things that are being done to combat CCD is also the re-examination of many pesticides that are globally used, but is on a country by country basis. So it becomes a real issue because there's not one ruling body that can determine whether or not use pesticides and other practices widely used that contribute to CCD uh, can be managed by. It has to be individually uh, altered, the laws as far as which country they exist in. Thank you for listening to my presentation.